like to ask Simon Gillis's granddaughter, Maureen Shriver, of Seattle, Washington State, and nephew Simon J. Gillis to come forward, a Cape Breton native now living in Dartmouth. Now, we don't really officially have a team going in tonight, but we kind of do, because watch what we're going to do here. This is tremendous support for Mr. Simon Gillis. So as I say your name, come on forward and come form a nice little half moon here. Niece Margaret Gillis, grandnephews Bernie MacDonald, Donald MacDonald, Edward MacDonald. Come on, folks. Neil MacDonald, Greg Gillis, Mark Gillis. Grandnieces Hyla Lamy, Marie Noseworthy, Colleen Norris, Evelina Gillis, and Kate MacDonald. Come on up. Gather around so you can all see this screen right over here. Bill, in 30 years, we have our first kilts. Here we go. Oh, I'm sorry, one to come. So Simon Gillis has some support, as you can see.
Simon Gillis of Gillisdale, Cape Breton, displayed feats of strength and hammer throw that remain unmatched today, earning him a venerated spot among Nova Scotia's very first Olympians.
The fact that he was able to compete and be recognized by the U.S. government to be a suitable candidate to represent them was a feat in my estimation.
The fact that a young man from Inverness County grew up in a farm in a rural area of Inverness County could make it all the way to the Olympic Games and place 7th there in the hammer throwing was really inspiring, I think, to show that anybody from, small community can do that. And in the time that he was doing that, there was no facilities here for training or anything like there is today.
It wasn't publicized very much that he was that involved with the Olympics. I don't think people fully understood what that really meant in those days. Going to the Olympics was quite different than going to the Olympics today, in that they traveled by ship, first of all, so it was an excursion before you got to your destination.
A waiter on the boat, when they were going to the Olympics in 1908, he called them whales because of all the food they were ordering. They're not men, they're whales. He said that was the Olympic team. The other hammer throwers, there was 4 or 5 of them that went to the Olympics from the New York Athletic Club.
Simon represented the USA at the 1904 and 1908 Olympics and qualified for the 1912 Olympics before an injury prevented him from competing.
We got to know him. I mean, his picture was hanging in the living room, the picture that we see with him with the hammer. He was the type of guy that was easy to talk to, and I was a teenager, and believe it or not, he had the ability to get down to my level to talk about his experiences. I saw a guy that had a lot of drive, and in order to be a good athlete, I think that's a prerequisite. You have to put up with a lot of pain, discomfort, intensity, and you get knocked off your perch every once in a while, but if you have enough drive, you just pick yourself up and go right back at it again. What impressed me about him the most was the fact that all those things he had done in the past were interesting and exciting, but he still continued to do exciting things.
Able to single-handedly defeat a team of 6 men in tug-of-war, Simon maintained his strength in his later years, recording a hammer throw in 1928 that outdistanced the Olympic record.
that he did the tug of war in Spain. He happened to be working down there for Light and Power Company, and there was a challenge put out, of course, that he wouldn't win it. There was bets put on it, but he won it. He held 6 men. He won it by 3 inches. That was in 1913. He even worked for Thomas Edison, doing the captions for the silent movies, and even appeared in a couple of the movies as a policeman.
In the first decade of the 20th century, he was the hammer throw champion at many prestigious national and international athletics events, setting 2 world records with the 12-pound hammer, achieving a distance of 210 feet.
He would just practice by going out into a big hayfield, and he would just, throw the hammer as far as he could.
The hammer was found, I think it was missing for years. They found it in the hayfield at Jerome McCachran's down here. He was practicing, came down to Cape Breton, Port Hood, and he practiced at the field down here, and he threw the hammer, and they couldn't find it. I guess he must have thrown it so far they couldn't find it. And after years, Jerome must have been cleaning the field and found the hammer, and he gave it to my father, and my father kept it at our house.
He was an impressive guy. He was a big man.
Of course, he was big. He was 250 pounds. He was 6'3". He was, strong.
And when he came in a room, he made a presence. Broad shoulders and stood erect. And a natty dresser. White shirt and cufflinks, that wasn't uncommon.
From 1904 on, he had won championships. He had broken records, world records, and Canadian record. He won Canadian championship. He won championships in Scotland, in England, in the United States, New York, New Jersey, also in Sweden and Scotland and Brazil and Spain. All of these places he competed in, all these places he won records. And even when he was 52 years old, he won a South Pacific championship down in Phoenix. And that was one of his last throws in 1928, where his throw was 20 feet longer than the Olympic record of that year. So, and he wasn't training at that time, so that was pretty much a huge feat for him to accomplish.
And tonight, we induct Simon Gillis into the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, to present the plaque, Mike Henderson, a member of the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame, also a member of the selection committee. And Anitra Stevens will present the pin. She's the Executive Director of Athletics Nova Scotia. I'm going to get Simon Jr. and Maureen just to come over here, okay? Just come all the way over so we're not blocking anybody here, yeah. Maureen, I know you went to your granddaughter, and you went to stay with him for a time when he was in Arizona. And you were telling me prior to tonight that you were somewhat taken aback by his choice of food and his eating prowess. Can you tell me a bit more?
Yeah, he'd sit down at the head of the dining room table with my 3 sisters and my mom and I, and he had a big tall glass in front of him. Plop in his oysters, raw oysters, take a couple eggs, crack them in there. Time and time again, he loved it. Yeah, that was
kind of propulsion for the hammer in a way, I guess. Simon, listen, we heard that, 6'3", 250, from a family of big guys, though, right?
Oh, yes. He came by naturally. Most of the family were 6 feet, except he had a younger brother, Joe. And although he was very athletic also, he was sort of an inside joke. He was the shrimp of the family.
Only 5'11".
5'11", yeah.
What was it like? Was he a guy that would let you know a lot about his past growing up?
No. He said very little about that. He probably was more forward-looking than he was backwards. And I also sensed a great sense of humility about him. It just was.
Yeah. Why do you think that years later this stage is full with people that want to be here to remember this guy so fondly?
He just lives on and on. He was a man of his own destiny, and that's what matters to people too, to make a contribution and making a difference in other people's lives also. And I think he did it here.
You gotta love a guy that throws a hammer so far they don't find it for 40 years. Gillis family, congratulations. Thank you all so much.